everything in my life had to collapse so I could get to my truth. And it wasn't mind gratitude. It wasn't like you should be gratitude. I am grateful for this moment to rebuild.
Meet Heather Fox. Heather is the founder of She is Fox, a business consultancy where she helps founders clear the road to success. Hear how she navigated multiple business failures, closing down her interior design business, and reinventing herself after hitting rock bottom after her divorce.
Now divorced, single mom, I had failure and I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. We can't be slammed with failure on the daily and think our life's gonna change.
We talk about how she overcame her internal voice she calls Shelia and the steps she took to rebuild her life when the deck seemed stacked against her.
Like it's me standing by myself, talking to this voice in my head, totally crazy, in my kitchen. I'm completely lost in my mind. And I was just like, shut up.
You'll leave this interview with some great tactics and a new fire under your backside to get after this week. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and welcome back to Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today, we're jumping back in the booth with another amazing guest. We got Heather Fox in the house. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Heather and I have been connected for nearly a decade. Yeah. So I was super excited to reach back to you and get you on the show and talk about your business journey, building various businesses and starting a new business and kind of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. I'm really pumped to talk with you today.
Yeah, I as I mentioned to you earlier, I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes since we first met to today. So I'm excited to share some of those revelations with you all.
Absolutely. So Heather is the owner of She is Fox, which is, I would say, like a business consulting company, that type of thing. And we'll talk about that in more detail. Heather also has a really cool journey that's kind of gone through like your corporate journey to like starting a home, I guess, decor business and kind of that type of thing, as well as like having to sunset that business, which we'll talk about, and just the hard truths of entrepreneurship. So I think there will be a lot of good tidbits for people to take away today.
Yeah, it has been an interesting journey across the board.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, jumping right in, I think a good place to start would probably be who you are today. So I always say if you get in a car, like an Uber with a really chatty driver and you got a 45-minute drive, you get out of the airport or something, if someone says, who are you and what do you typically tell them?
Yeah, so I'm Heather Fox. I'm the founder of She is Fox. And today what I focus on, I'm an Akashic Records practitioner, which we can talk about because some people know what that is, some don't. But I'm a channel, I'm an intuitive, I'm a mentor. It's very different than what I've done in the past. And the people that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs actually, intuitives, and I also work with elite athletes. So these are the type of people that have built something really profound. They're quite successful, but they're starting to realize they've done it out of pressure and it's becoming a grind and it's challenging. And so usually when I enter their world is when we need to start looking at the energetics of their business and how they're operating, their mindset, the belief systems, all of those things. And so I start to work with them, and it's very nuanced and very subtle, which you'll see some of that today just through my own journey, just to help them pivot and shift their business so that it's from a place of alignment and truth, which completely changes and transforms their businesses. I work with individuals a lot, but it's mostly entrepreneurs. So that's what I do today. But my background, as you mentioned, is largely I spent over 15 years in the corporate world. I led international teams, spoke on global stages, I led cultural transformation, and during that time, I've also owned my own businesses. But today, I'm back to just solely owning my own business, which I'm so grateful for. So that's where I land today.
Very cool. What would you say it's more business coach? Is it transformational leadership coaching? Is that kind of the focus? Is like they're at this barrier and you have to try and get them over the hump?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I struggle with this so much because I really don't know how to frame it up and I haven't found the words. But essentially, people get to a point where they're like, I know there's something more for me and I can't figure it out. And I've done all of the things. Help me. That's usually what I get. So in a personal life, it'd be someone like I keep attracting the wrong partners. Or, in the professional life, it's like I hit $300,000 a month and I can't get past that. Like what's the deal? Like I hit and then I drop back down and hit and I can't figure it out. So it's usually when they get to that point of there's a knowing they're here for something greater or there's something more, there's an expansion, they can't put their finger on it. That's when I start working with them and we start to, those things pop for me, but we get them back to their truth. And it's really like removing the illusions and the interferences of what they've been told to get them to their truth so they can see clearly and have clarity, and then moving in the alignment. And I work with the energetics underneath it because you can have clarity and truth, but if your energetics don't align, there's a dissonance in your field. So
That makes a lot of sense.
that was a lot of words to explain what I do, but
No,
it's the
no, I
best.
think it makes sense, and I think, an interesting thing would just be, is there any, like, notable people you mentioned, like, athletes and things, I'm assuming you have to sign some NDAs here and there, but are there any people that people would recognize, like an NBA player or something like that, that would just be, like, give people point of reference of who you work with?
Yeah, so I all of the clients are confidential, so I can't say the specific names, but they're typically people on it's interesting because I would say I have two groups. One are the people that are on the top of their game. So they are people you would recognize in the industry. They are people that whether it's business or the elite professions, right? Where when you're looking at athletics, it's like all of a sudden I can't like I used to throw, I used to get this many yardage. I can't like what happened to me? Like, and then it starts to get in their head and they start to loop. So it's usually like people that are truly on the top of their games or entrepreneurs that are on the top of their games. And then the other group I work with are the people that are actually just coming up. So they're the ones with the fire in their soul. And they're like, I know I'm here for something greater. And I literally cannot figure it out because they're surrounded with people that view the world differently. So it's interesting. So I work with the elite business athletics and also I get a lot of intuitive. So there's like if you think of like other people who channel that are fairly well known or in numerology that are fairly well known, I will read for them. There's a lot of therapists actually that are fairly well known that I'll do readings for them because we all get in our own head. So it's those two groups that I work with. They're right at the like they've reached their point where they can get to themselves and they're super driven and want to get to the next step, but have tried everything. So
No, I love it. I love it. I think it'll help a little bit for people to understand a little bit about kind of your backstory, how you got where you're currently at, and we can talk about that journey along the way. Um, I probably a good place to start would just be tell me about like your childhood. Where'd you grow up, and what was that like for you?
yeah. So it's really interesting. I grew up in a super, super small town in Tracy, Minnesota. It's about 90 minutes north of Okoboji. And there were, I think, 60 kids in my graduating class. It's interesting because growing up, I always knew that I wanted to go to a bigger city. But like so grateful that I had such a small town to grow up in because I was able to foster connection. I was able to feel community and just really do the simple things in life. Like growing up in Minnesota, we spent a lot of our summers at the lake. My grandparents had a lake house. And so I needed that. So sometimes, like growing up, I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have started in a bigger city. I would have had more connections. But then in hindsight, I'm like, I needed that. That was the base. That was my structure and my foundation to be able to launch from. So I've been in Des Moines, oh gosh, 23 years now. So I feel like I've almost lived half my life here.
Sure, sure. Well, I think it helps having that, like, I would say humble beginnings, a good place to like
Mhm.
ground you. Because a lot of people that I feel like were raised in like a really busy city, they're just used to the hustle and bustle. They don't have like a way to just unplug and get back. I know I deal with that as well. I'm from Southeast Iowa originally, and
Mm.
even just Des Moines, I wouldn't call it a bustling,
Yes.
buzzing city, but there's a lot more going on here
Yeah.
than in rural Iowa. And it's always interesting to go back home and just kind of take unplug for a day or two and see that.
Yeah, the silence, the space, and the boredom, I think were gifts for me because that's where I learned to use my imagination. That's where I learned to hear my own voice. That's where I learned to connect. And I mean, obviously at the time, I thought it was like the worst thing ever, right? But it was such a gift that now when I get too wrapped up in my own head, I retreat back to the water, the silence, the space, and then I can feel things clear for me because I can get too wrapped up in, there's always something to do here. There's always some place to go. There's always some event which I love, and we can get caught up in the going, 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 and we forget to be for a moment.
I totally connect to that. In terms of like biggest, I would say like lesson or takeaway from childhood, we ask this a lot with people. What's kind of the cornerstone thing that you feel like you took from your childhood into adulthood that you use pretty regularly in terms of like mindset, work ethic, or kind of a lesson that your parents or people gave you along the way?
That is such a good question. I have a couple floating here. Let's see. There was this. Well, there was this beauty in the simplicity, I would say, is the number one thing. And so growing up, we didn't have a lot. We always had enough, but we didn't have a lot. And there was so much beauty in the simplicity, whether we were making a simple meal from home, whether I was, taking strawberries out of the garden with my grandma. Like there was so much beauty in that I didn't sometimes really realize what I was missing, with all the other things because the simplicity of life was so loved and there was so much gratitude. I distinctly remember being with my grandma in the garden and picking the strawberry. And you would have thought it was like the biggest piece of art in the entire world. It was so beautiful. She's like, these are so right. They're so perfect. We went in and we washed them and we admired the strawberry. And it was just those things. Like we found so much gratitude. And it wasn't like, oh, we're thankful to have food. It was like embodied gratitude for the simplicity. And I still very much appreciate simplicity. And I'll say an embodied level of gratitude. I think so many of us are like, what's our gratitude list? But we don't actually feel like this is amazing. We have the best strawberries on the planet. We just picked them from our backyard. We didn't even have to go anywhere. So that has really fueled me. And I would say even got me through some of these really challenging times when I felt like my life was completely collapsing. Well, it was collapsing.
Sure. No, I love it. I think that's great. And it's always interesting to hear what people say because sometimes people don't even haven't really reflected on the impact that childhood has on us as adults, and it's always an interesting path there. So you leave. Where do you go to college? What's kind of your next step after high school?
So after high school, I went to college, which is an interesting story in and of itself. In high school, I was a straight A student. I was a multi-letter winner in many different sports. I was in band, I was in choir, I was on the honor, like all of these things, right? Thinking I had it. Well, I did absolutely horrible on my ACT. And I had applied to several colleges and I got in the one I really wanted to get into. I got a rejection letter. And the second one I wanted to get into was too expensive and they weren't giving us enough financial aid. So my top two choices were out. So I went to my third choice, which was a private college in Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Again, very grateful to have an amazing institution to continue my education. However, every day showing up there felt like failure and rejection because the two places I wanted to go, I either couldn't afford, so scarcity, not enough money, or you're not smart enough, even though I'm like, I did all of these things. So I went to Augustana University. It ended up being a good fit for me, but I still very much struggled on a daily basis of like, this is just not where I want to be. And I'm still grateful for it. But I have a degree in business communication and then ended up spending a ton of time in psychology. I should have gotten a psychology degree, but here we are. And then at that time, I had met was now ex-husband. I'd met him. He got a job down here in Des Moines. And so after college, I moved down here and I've been here ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
With having the move down here, do you feel like Des Moines similar, different than Minnesota?
So the town I grew up in was so small. Obviously Des Moines is much larger. But what I do like about it is there is something to be said about the Midwest niceness and people are pretty grounded and intelligent. And I feel really grateful because when I went to college where I grew up in here, I feel like if you want help or support or mentorship, like people are happy to help you or share or introduce you to someone. And so that aspect of it felt so comforting. Even though the city was larger, I still felt the connection of the community, which I think is still very much true and not an easy thing to accomplish in a larger city. So as far as the amenities, obviously very different experience. But as far as I would say the culture and the connection in the community are very similar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We talk about kind of your career journey as it's gone. We'll spend a lot of this talking about your entrepreneurship because it's way more fun to talk about. But not to be understated, like earlier careers or earlier career roles that you had in your process were like Wells Fargo, Farm Bureau, those types of places. Yeah. What did those types of roles teach you about business leadership, business acumen, and then also like how those prepare you for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I feel truly lucky because even when I was just finishing up college, I took a role as an executive assistant. And that was the greatest gift for me because being an executive assistant at the age of 21, I worked for the chairman and the CEO, and I got to see everything. I got to see the inner workings of the politics. I got to see the inner workings of the C-suite. I got to see the inner workings of board meetings and the board. I got to see the financials. I got to see how people reacted. I got to see how the decisions were made and then how the people responded. And sometimes there was dissonance, right? Like the decision was made with good intent, but the way it was delivered, it didn't land. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I got to see the rest of the staff and all the different departments and how they operated and what they were experiencing versus what the C-suite was experiencing. So that was the greatest gift. And I'm so grateful for it. I had a fantastic boss that I would raise my hand all the time of like, can I do that? Can I do this? Can I do this? And he was like, yes, yes, yes. And I mean, I'm green as can be. Like, I didn't even know how to use Microsoft Office. Like, I didn't know how to schedule an appointment. I'm like, you don't learn this in college. And so he was fantastic. And that really launched my career because then I had a ton of connections in a place that I just moved to in Des Moines. And then I became a project manager, a program manager. So then I started to learn, like, how do you run all of the different pieces? How do you get tech people to work with HR to get, we're talking different languages and they have different criteria. They care about different things, right? Tech are like, we need the requirements. And the HR is like, well, we need this, this, and this. And so just to be able to navigate the different personalities, see everything, manage the budget, like that was beautiful for entrepreneurship. And then also I'm the one that has to communicate to stakeholders when stuff isn't going as planned, right? And I have to be looking far enough in advance to be like, hey, we're going to crash and burn here. And then start to prepare that. And then how can I shift that? But I also have to be present enough to keep the things moving. So I feel like that was just an amazing experience through that, which then led to doing cultural transformations, which now you're getting more into the psychology. I mean, there was a lot of psychology in, working with people, right? But now we're changing the culture. We're changing the experiences. We're changing what people have known. And more importantly, when there's cultural transformations, you're actually most often changing what the people who are there built. And that's not an easy thing to do. And so having the compassion, the care, but also the leadership and setting the boundaries and setting the stage, like I always called it firm, loving boundaries, right? Like we have to have the boundaries. I can't cave to everyone, but I can have love and compassion for everyone, have an understanding of where they're coming from and let everyone have a voice. So that has really kind of been my journey. And then that led to leading international teams, which was a whole nother dynamic, right? Different time zones and just different culture standards. Like I'm a pretty casual person and I really had to be mindful of my words because they carry different weight in different cultures and just understanding. And so that was a big learning experience for me of, gosh, like I haven't really worked globally and that changes things. So I feel like every step, like I just added layers and layers and layers to that. And I feel grateful. I've always been one to raise my hand and ask for mentors and they've said yes. And so throughout all of the different places I have worked, through all of my different positions, I had amazing mentors that guided me in some way or another. And so that really helped me also find my gifts and my strengths and also grow within the company.
Sure, sure. And we talk with some different entrepreneurs along the way that they just started their thing in college or out of college or in high school or whatever, and they have no industry knowledge. You have to learn along the way, where I feel like learning a couple different industries helps prepare you for the great beyond,
Yeah.
whatever comes after you kind of pull the trigger there. So as you're kind of moving through that whole process, was there kind of a itch or desire to kind of start your own business? Where did this idea of entrepreneurship come out for you?
Actually, when I was a little girl, I decided I want to own my own business or be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company at a time when I didn't know what a Fortune 500 company was. I just would run around and say that. I was just like, I want one of these two things. And so for a long time, I thought my path was in the corporate world, actually. And I was like, I'm going to climb this ladder. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. About killed myself the way there, because I was working a bajillion hours. But I was like, I part of it I was loving because I was getting so much experience. And then I started to realize like, whoa, this is like I'm actually not cut out for this in this way. But I always knew I wanted one of those things, but I didn't know why until later. And really, when I started to kind of dig into why does a kid randomly think this? There was no industry. There was nothing. I just want to be a CEO of Fortune 500. So for me, it was impact. I'm like, oh, I care about people and I want to have a positive impact, and it's a leadership role. So that's really when I trace it back and look back at my childhood, I'm like, that's actually what I wanted. And at the time, those were the only two ways I knew how to get that.
Sure. That makes more sense. It's different than like a vet or a superstar or an astronaut or something. It's like, oh, just different
Yeah.
angle there. So that's kind of cool. Um, we talk about kind of this entrepreneurship path. Was Bubblins your first kind of venture into that world? What
No,
was your first venture
I had
into?
a couple different companies. I actually had a health coaching business before that. So that was like the first one that I really started to do. And then I had a bakery. I had an in-home bakery. And that was fantastic. But I just realized like once I had a child that I couldn't bake till 2 in the morning and be a mom. And I was still working my corporate job. And so I was like, all of a sudden baking isn't fun when I have to do it. So I had a few little ones that were actually like little mini successes. And then I had Bubblins, which was the interior decorating company, which is when we first met. And then I shut that down and now I have my She is Fox.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. So talk to me about Bubblins. I think this will be an interesting one for
Yeah.
people in the listening audience that are into interior design, because I think it's still a continuing growing industry and people have
Mhm.
interest in it. What is Bubblins Home, and talk to me about what that business was.
Yeah, so this Bublin, so I'm not an interior designer and I'm not an interior decorator. So most people are like, "What the heck are you doing in this industry?" So Bublins, the premise in which it was, I'll say, birth was I'm really interested in how our minds work and neuroscience and feng shui. And when I learned that everything in our surrounding, everything that surrounds us, our space, impacts our subconscious mind. And most of us know most of our decisions and our patterns and our behaviors are based off of our subconscious mind. So, like, all of a sudden, I had this like light bulb moment of how many people don't pay attention to their spaces. So, Bubblins was about the power of your space, the emotive power of your space. And how do we create a space that supports where you want to go, not where you are, because this is reinforcing your decisions. So, if you're constantly in a space that's full of clutter, it's reminding you of broken things, things people have given you that you actually hate, but you're like, gosh, if I get rid of it, I feel bad. So, hello, guilt and shame and all of this stuff. If that's constantly reflecting broken, clutter, messy, guilt, shame, if that's what's reflected back to you on the daily, that impacts your subconscious, which impacts your life. So, what I focused on with Bubblins, we did have products, but a lot of it, I would go in and I'd work with people in their spaces. And then as they would enter in a room, I'd be like, okay, what comes up for you here? And a lot of times it would be moving pieces. So there's one distinct client I had. She had this beautiful sunroom. She's like, it's my favorite space in the entire house. I love it. But she's like, I don't love it. I want to love it. And I was like, okay. So tell me, I just started asking her, like, tell me about some of the stuff you have in here. Well, a lot of it was from her mother. And while she loves her mother, her and her mother never saw eye to eye. There was always tension within them. So if you think about it, so what we did is I'm like, you don't have to get rid of this piece. You don't even have to buy any new pieces. Everything from your mom, let's just take it and put it in a different place. Because she loved her mom, but it was contentious relationship with her mom. We took that out of her sacred little sunroom. Instantly, you could physically see her body shift because she was able to relax. So the constant reminders of mom at a subconscious level, we're not sitting in the sunroom thinking of mom, but subconsciously we feel that tension. It impacts us. So that's all we did. She didn't buy anything. We moved the pieces to a different part of our house where it was like enjoyable to see. Like, these are from mom. I really like them. But when I go to relax, I don't want to be surrounded with her and her energy. So that was really the premise of Bubblins. And I still love it today, to this point, if you can tell. But it was about the emotive power of the space and how much our space matters. And I think as Americans, we think you either need to have an interior decorator, designer, make the most beautiful space, or it's just random, whatever you have. And like, you can have something in the middle and it can completely change your life.
No, that's perfect. When it comes to the business model, were you selling more of a or consulting service? Was it eventually we want to get like these conversations going and then kind of figure out what pieces we could maybe source for people? What was kind of
Mhm.
the business model for that?
Yeah, so the business model started out with consulting and an education. I just wanted people to know your space matters, people, and you can do something about it, and it doesn't have to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. It evolved to more of designs for people and then curated packages for people. And truthfully, as it evolved, it became less of me, which is like part of a lesson for me is that I was started out with what I loved and then I saw opportunity and then I was encouraged to chase the opportunity. Like, you can make a lot more money doing this because there's only one of you. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so I started to go down this path. And as it went down this path, I realized like this isn't me and it's actually not that fun. So while it's more profitable, I hate this part. I don't want to manage project products. I don't even want to design products. I want people to understand their space and how to create it. So it started out aligned with me. It ended up less aligned with me.
Sure, sure. And it's a common struggle I think a lot of people have of like they start a business to be the practitioner, and then if capitalism has any taste of anybody, it's like, okay, now like we have to grow, build a team, or we have to productize the knowledge, or we have to
Yeah.
turn this into something we can an e-commerce product or something. Was there a piece of that kind of informed you like, okay, I really just enjoy the like consultative piece, the helping people directly? Because that could have been a route you went where it's like, oh, we have a team of other people and
Yes.
we're into your design team that comes in, and there is an angle for that, I
Right.
guess. So
Yeah, I could sorry, ask your question again. I just lost it.
no, so it was how do I rephrase it? Basically, did you ever look at doing kind of a larger scale, like
Oh.
managing a team to do or a consultancy rather than like a product based business?
Yeah, I did, and, it's interesting because I looking back, I had that thought. Like, I knew there's a way to make this work and make it grow beyond me, keeping it the way I wanted to, but I never used my voice to speak up. So I had investors come to me. I was getting a lot of really good traction and they're like, "Well, we're going to invest in you if you do X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, "Okay, like you've invested in a ton of companies, like you must know something more than me." That's where I went wrong. So they weren't wrong, they were right, but they didn't know my heart and passion. So I saw a path forward, but I didn't activate my own power. I never even really spoke up, to be honest. I was just like, "Okay, like I'll keep this piece and I'll also do this piece, I guess." And yeah, it was just interesting looking back. So I'm like, why didn't I speak up? Like, but that was really my whole life up until that point. I didn't speak up.
Sure, sure. What did it feel like to have outside people, other voices, other people trying to like tell you how to manage your own business? What was that kind of feeling like bouncing around your head when you're getting this feedback from people like, "Oh, do this, do that. Like I know better than you, and you're the one that owns the thing," you know?
Yeah, it was really interesting because inside I actually felt icky. I knew I was betraying myself, but I didn't pause long enough to listen to it because I actually didn't want to hear it. Because if I heard it, I had the illusion that I had to make a decision on it. But I think that's where we go wrong sometimes. Just because I wasn't willing to actually sit down and be like, this is not headed in the direction that I want, just to myself. And then realize, and I can still follow this crappy direction if I choose. But I didn't do that because I felt the illusion that if I acknowledge the truth to myself, then I have to make a decision. Well, ideally you would, but I don't have to. But I wasn't even willing to like have that conversation with myself. So I felt like icky because I was betraying myself. I even felt icky taking investor money because I'm like I can see logically how this makes a whole lot of sense. I see the need. I've done all the research. I've done all the consumer like connection. Like I get it. There's a path for a lot of money here. I get that. But it felt so unaligned with me that this whole time, if you can imagine, like here's me like super engaged and then I slowly start to like pull away. I start to even disengage in my business even more. And I almost feel like the best way I could explain it is like I was a ghost of myself. So now I'm going through the actions. I'm doing the thing. I'm not loving it. I'm upset with myself, but I don't fully allow it in, so I keep up the image. I keep like showing up happy. This is what we're going to do. I can totally see the vision. I can see the future. And like now I have people that have invested. Like I had this image that I had to maintain. There was no time for this Heather that felt icky. Like shut up, move out of the way. We got a business to run. And so looking back, it was self-betrayal at its finest and it felt awful, but I just pretended it wasn't happening. But
Mhm.
I didn't really realize the extent that I was doing it because I was doing that in all areas of my life.
Sure. As the business is continuing to go through its journey, you mentioned there's outside investor talk, there's things going on. At what point, I'm assuming there was a breaking point at some point with this business. What was that for you?
Yeah, it was actually my divorce. So I got to this point, up until this point, my life looks perfect. I have the business that I built from scratch that I love. I'm married. I have a little kid. I have the house in the ideal neighborhood. I mean, I have it all, right? And behind the scenes, obviously things were starting to crumble, but it felt like overnight. All of a sudden, I was divorced. I'm a single mom. And those two carried a lot of weight for me because I was brought up Catholic. So I had so much shame and embarrassment. I was so embarrassed to be like, hi, I'm like a divorced single mom. So that was really heavy. And then because of the divorce, I had Bublins for about 3 years or so. And it was making traction, but I was working nights and weekends. And I wasn't making enough to pay for a mortgage, to pay for a vehicle, to pay for daycare, to pay for insurance. Like, I was like, I don't want to let this go. And I don't have enough money to put food on the table consistently. And I have a kid. Like, had it been me and not a kid, I probably would have been like, let's just live out of our car and see what would
Sure. Rice and
happen.
beans, you can make it. You
Yeah.
can make it happen. Yeah.
But I was like, I just can't do this. And so then, like, I'm divorced. I'm a single mom. I'm now shutting down my business. And I went back to the corporate world, which, in the back of my mind, I'm like, if Bublins doesn't work, like my backup plan's always the corporate world. Like it's not that bad. But truthfully, no one wants to activate their backup plan. And every time I logged into my corporate job, it felt like absolute failure, which was the same failure I logged every time I went to college, every day I went to school. Failure, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the same thing happening again. So I had to shut down Bublins because I didn't make enough money to keep it going, even though the trajectory was, I had all the right signs that it was headed in the right way. Um, but it just everything came crashing down and slammed down at once. And I it was interesting. I'll tell you this little story. I distinctly remember I moved out of our marital house because I couldn't afford to stay there. And I rented this townhome, and it was a brand new townhome, but it was cheap. Like the materials were so cheap. I could feel like the floor felt like plastic, right? And so everything's collapsing in my world. And I fling the kitchen door shut. You know how I just like fling it shut? And it slammed shut. And it kind of like caught my attention like, whoa, like I didn't slam it shut, but it slammed shut. And I was like, that slam felt like everything in my life. My business slammed shut, my marriage slammed shut, my like identity, my image, everything is like slammed shut. And I realized is that I'm like, this is funny. I got used to soft clothes because in our marital house, we had soft clothes on every drawer, every door, in the kitchens and the bathrooms. And I'm like, whoa, like I don't have that anymore. And it was really interesting because I had this moment of just like anger. Like, why? Why is all this happening? Like, I just rage. And I don't know what made me think of this, but I'm so glad I did. Is that every time because I slammed the door shut a few more times, like just out of habit, I'm like, oh my gosh, so I'm like, I can't have that reaction. So every time I accidentally slammed a door shut, I said, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Another layer gone. Thank you. Another layer dissolved. Another piece of my image dissolved. Thank you. Thank you. And I just was like, thank you. Thank you. Like, I'm like, we're in it. Everything is collapsing. Everything's crumbling. I'm losing my friends. I lost my business. I'm trying to regain traction in the corporate world. Like, thank you. Thank you. Like, as long as we're in it, just keep it coming. Right. And that moment, all of that, that collapse of my business, the collapse of my life simultaneously, brought me back to my truth. And I remember thinking, like, I have nothing left. And when I moved into the townhome, I literally had nothing. If I opened up my wallet, there was not a dollar bill in there. I had one credit card that had $10,000, and I had to use that to rebuild my life because I hadn't even got my first paycheck from my corporate job. Like, I literally had nothing. And I remember just thinking, like, I had this power come in me, like, I have nothing, but I have my truth. I now have my truth. And if I have my truth, I can rebuild anything. And so the collapse really gave me that thing of like, okay, I have nothing but my truth. Here we are.
I love that. When you're kind of at that lowest point, you mentioned like probably slugging all your stuff into your new little townhome and slamming it down, and you're just kind of like, oh, now I got to like furnish this place and kind of rebuild my life. What was kind of that like voice inside yourself that told you to get up? Because it's so easy for you to just be like, this is what my life is now, and just be like stuck in the slug for months or
Yeah.
years. What was kind of that voice like in your head that got you out of that hard point in your life?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of it was my daughter. Like I saw her and having no money, it's really interesting because our living room, I was like, I don't have money to buy furniture. Like this is weird. So I'm like, I'm going to turn it into an art studio for her. And I ended up getting money to get furniture, so we didn't do that, but I was just like, how can I make this the best experience, right? Like we have this open space. I have no sofas. I have no chairs, like mind you, bubblins, right? I have a few leftover pieces, so I'm closing down my business, but it's not furniture. And so I just remember thinking, like, use my imagination and make it the best I can be. But what actually happened is I didn't I had those moments like where I saw her, I felt this like, okay, I have to keep going. But to be real, when she wasn't with me, I was a mess. So I I again standing in this kitchen, I think my becoming of who I am today became in this kitchen because I'm standing in that same damn kitchen by myself. And I was like, how is this my life? So I still have this anger. I'm like ready to rage. I'm so like, there's grief flowing over me. I'm a mess. I can't get my crap together to save my life. Friends are like taking his side versus my side and are like not showing up. They don't call. I feel like a disgrace. And so I was like, why is this how is this my life? I was just so angry in my kitchen. Like, how is this my life? I did everything I thought I was supposed to. I did everything everyone told me to. And this is what I have. So I had my little pity party, right? Like, and it just started to grow and grow and grow. And then it would loop in my mind. And my mind would be like, excuse me, it would be the loop that was like, why me? Why this happened to me? So all of a sudden, I like fell to this victim stage. And I'm like, why me? Why does this have to happen to me? And that voice became so loud in my head, and it was looping so loud in my head that I gave her a name. And the voice in my head's name is Sheila. And Sheila like grew a real personality. Like she would run her mouth. She thought she was in the driver's seat. She like took on this whole thing, and it became this point where Sheila was like, "Oh, well you could have done this or you should have done that. You're such a stupid blonde. You should have seen this coming." Like it was like real criticism. And I got to the point in my head, I was so filled with this voice of Sheila in my head and just shame and victim. I literally was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "Shut up. Shut up." Like it's me standing by myself, talking to this voice in my head, totally crazy in my kitchen. I'm completely lost in my mind. And I was just like, "Shut up." Like every ounce of my mind was yelling at this voice in my head to shut up. And in that moment, I heard, I'm so, like at the time, I'm like, where did this come from? But in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that was totally divine dropping in. I heard, now what? Now what? So even if everything Sheila says is true, now what? And all of a sudden, I realized the sob stories, the unfair, the unjust, none of it really mattered. None of it mattered because the only thing that mattered is now what? Like, this is all that stuff got me here, but now what? And so it was this moment of this, why me? Really, I was like in a total victim, like, poor me, right? If I'm really honest, it was like, poor me. Like, I've done everything right. Why is this happening to me? And that victim state, like, I was just like, life is happening to me. But when you shift to now what, like all of a sudden your power is activated. And that little shift is like a game changer for me because in that moment I was like, I get to choose what my story means, actually. I get to choose, does it mean I'm a bad person? Does it mean I'm a bad mother? Does it mean that I'm never going to get married again? Does it mean I'll never have a business again? Or is this going to be the fuel to drive me forward and rebuild differently? And so that was like the key moment of, I had the collapse back into my truth, but then I was still very much, my energy was in this victim mode or save me mode. And I realized like no one's coming to save me. And so the why me to the now what shifted my energy. And it's so subtle. And I feel like so many people miss it. Like it's something we can do right now. Like if you even feeling like, oh, why me? To like, well, now what am I going to do? You feel that energy shift in your body. Like it's just so subtle and so nuanced, but that's like the only thing I needed to start to be like, okay, pick yourself up
Mhm.
and figure this out.
And knowing that you're the only one that has the answers to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's that everything in your life's prepared you for that one point. And I feel like a lot of people, we've had some crazy life stories, life journeys come on the pod. And I think it's always interesting because you have to, it's like everyone has their own biggest challenge in life. But that's the thing that just tests you to be like, are you actually like not worthy, but like able to handle hard stuff?
Yeah.
It's like it's you're gonna get dropped on your head a few times, and in your case, it felt like everything was happening all at the
Yeah.
exact same time. But in that moment, telling Sheila to go to hell and get out of here, now you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Now instead of like bouncing around the back of a trunk, getting taken God knows where, like you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You got your hands are on the wheel. Like you can decide what happens next, which is
Yeah.
super powerful.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. Cause like to be honest, Sheila still runs her mouth, right? Like I'm like, oh hey Sheila. Like
Yep.
literally I have this crazy conversation with this voice in my head. But you're right, she's in the back seat and I'm in the driver's seat. And now I'm like, I know how she operates. She operates out of fear. She was like trying to put all these voices in my head to try to get me to do certain things. So that was a key piece. And the other key piece is like I realized like in that moment, this is kind of crazy, but I was like, I don't actually have to get it right. I just have to try something different. Because up into my life, until that point, I thought I was doing everything right. And I ended up here in the kitchen by myself with plastic floor under my feet and anger and rage. And I'm shouting at this invisible voice in my head. And I was like, getting it perfect paralyzes us. I don't know what the next right decision is for me. I know I need to rebuild my life differently, but I have no clue how to do that because I've actually never done it because I've actually only done everything everyone ever told me to do, and that didn't work. So I was like, we know that doesn't work. Let's just try something else. And you don't even have to get it right. Just try it. If it doesn't work, try something different, but don't keep doing this. So like I knew I needed to rebuild differently.
I love that. This huge profound transformation I think is super interesting because I'm sure it took time to kind of get that voice in your head to change. What is the voice in your head now today? Does Sheila have a twin sister up there bouncing around as like the angel and the devil on the shoulder, or have you changed your internal dialogue to be different, to speak to yourself differently now?
Yeah. So Sheila is still there. And I think she always will be because it's that part of us that doesn't want us to screw up. So I started to build a relationship with Sheila. So Sheila knows she's not in the driver's seat. She can be in the back seat. But I started to look at Sheila differently of what are you trying to protect me of? What are you so afraid of? And I use that for guidance, just like a little data point. I do not let it lead though. But I'm like, maybe there is something she's afraid of.
It's like self-preservation
Yeah.
mindset, right? Yep.
And so, and for her, she was really about protecting my image, because I put a lot of pressure on my image, right? That was up until this point. But now it's my truth. So for me, when I like lose my way or feel I'm not good enough or I don't have what it takes, or, we just get in those funks where we're like, I can't, like, do I have it? I like go back to my truth. And that is like, this sounds a little bit crazy, but I sometimes when I'm really struggling, I will go all the way back to realize my grandparents had to come over here from Germany and Switzerland and wherever else, and they had to go there, and they happen to meet here, and they had to meet here, and then my parents had to meet in order for me to be born at this time in this place with this family, with this understanding, with this upbringing, where I realized like simplicity is gratitude, like all of this crap had to happen in order for it to me to be here. Do not tell me that you are not meant to be here with these gifts at this point in time. Like it is this little bit of like a pep talk, but it's also like this firm remembering of like, wait a minute, you didn't just get here for no reason. So there is that like embodied, like, wait a minute, I have these gifts. I'm designed this way. I went through that for a reason. It's like, so I let that part of me lead. And when I get so focused on, um, it helps me remember my purpose and my gifts, and like everything else kind of fades away. So I have that like journey of like, it took everything for me to be sitting here with you today. Like, hello, how is this not designed to happen, right? On 11, 11, 11, 11. Um, so that's what I do. And when I do that, what it does is it shifts my energy back into my truth, and it kind of blocks out all the doubts and the worries for me to just like re-anchor, and then I go back to the like, well, now what do you want to do?
Mhm. It's such a profound thing though, because I think that mindset shift really does change your whole outlook on life. Because I think about this too, like it could be even the smallest thing where the second you wake up in the morning, your alarm's going off. If that voice in your head's like, snooze it, go back to sleep, or man, I'm tired, go back to sleep. It's like if you flip it where, hey, you need to get up. Like if your voice and
Mhm.
if your internal dialogue is telling you to do the things that you need to do, or the things that'll move you forward in whatever the pursuits are, it's like that gets you like half of the way there. Cause it's
Yeah.
like once you hit that roadblock, it's like, oh, this is a challenge. Like, rather than like, oh, this is happening to me.
Mhm.
It's kind of this like, hey everyone, let's get the bonfire together and have the big pity party.
Yes. It's interesting hearing you say that because I do have a couple different, there's the like firm, loving person part of me that is like, I don't lay in bed and think about it because this is a total tangent and side note, but we waste so much time thinking about the things we want to do. And then we're like, I don't actually have time, myself included, right? So I'm like, we're not thinking about the things that we know we're going to do. We're just going to go do them. So I kind of have this like loving adult type version of like, hey, girlfriend, we're not doing that. Remember? Let's get up. But then I also have this part of me that is free to play and explore. Just because I'm an adult, it doesn't mean I don't get to try things. It doesn't mean I don't get to like be a beginner again. It doesn't mean I can't experiment and learn and grow and shift and play and mess up, but it's done with this lightheartedness. But I do have this, it's really interesting. That is part of my structure that I created, is like this firm, loving boundary that allows my natural self to flow and expand and flourish without the critical voice taking control.
I love that. As you started to rebuild your life, what did that look like? And what was kind of your driving motivator to pull yourself out of this hole that you found yourself in?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I had the collapse, found my power essentially, and then I was starting to feel better about life. Like, okay, I kind of dried my tears and was like, okay, I can see how I can still have a good life. I can see how this can be good. And a lot of times when people's lives crumble, I think it's like their midlife crisis where like, I can date anyone I want. I can eat anything I want. I can spend my money however I want. I didn't really have that rebelliousness, but I wanted to breathe. I craved space. I just wanted to breathe in my own air. I wanted to have my own space. I wanted to make my own decisions without trying to see if what I did met someone else's expectations. Like I wanted this freedom to be me without having to meet expectations or a certain image. And I wanted my decisions to be mine. I wanted my time to be mine. I wanted my money to be mine. And for a while, I started to do that, and I was like, "Oh, this feels really cool. Like it's like free, and to some extent, it is freedom." But then I realized like freedom isn't in what I can have. Freedom is in like not allowing certain things to control me. And so when I realized that, that's when I was like, "Okay, I have to rebuild differently." Because if I just have all these freedoms, they're not really anchored. So it feels good, but how am I going to build from there?
Mhm.
And so that's when I started to play. I really gave myself like, okay, you've never built a different life. So you're probably not going to get it right, but we know we're not going to do the same thing again. So let's try something new.
And like, what does Heather want versus like everyone else,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And it's so interesting. We don't always know because we haven't allowed ourselves to feel or experience that. And so sometimes I like some of my clients, I'll like ask them a question. They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, well, of course you don't know because you've never actually allowed yourself to ask yourself what you really wanted. Right. But for me, so I was like, I don't know what this looks like. So we're just going to experiment. So it was like a secret little experiment I did with myself. And I started to like, if something stretched me outside of my comfort zone, if something stretched me to the point where I was gonna physically collapse or emotionally collapse, it was a no for me. If it drained my energy, it was a no. If I dreaded it, it was a no. If I had to cut apart a piece of who I am to in order to fit into that, it was a no. So I started just to say no to anything that wasn't just like a full on yes, or I felt like I had to like, ooh, show up a certain way. And I started to realize like, okay, this piece I'm feeling is worth more than acceptance and approval. And so what that really looked like in my life is I would say no to girls' night out if it meant I had to show up and pretend I was okay and I wasn't. It also meant I would say no to volunteer activities if I was doing it because I thought it would look good, if I was doing it because I thought it's what I should do. Because at this point in my life, I'm a single mom. I'm back in the corporate world. I'm trying to rebuild my life. I'm still figuring out all the divorce crap. I'm still closing down aspects of my business. I'm logging into work feeling like a failure. I had nothing to give. I had no money. I had no energy. I had no smiles left. Like I had nothing to give. So I said no to volunteer activities because I'm like, I don't have anything to give. And that started to shape like what my boundaries were. So my boundaries became I will not defend myself. I'm not going to justify who I am or my decisions. I'm not going to try to convince you to like me. And, a lot of times people think that boundaries are pushing people out or I'm going to block this person or block that person. And that can be, but it's far greater than that. For me, my boundaries became I'm not going to perform. It is not on me to make sure that you like me. It is not on me to convince you that my ideas are good or to like me. It's not on me to get you to accept me so that you feel good about who I am in your life. That's not on me. And so I stopped doing that and realized that my peace didn't require me to defend. My truth doesn't require justification. And it's just not on me to try to get you or anyone to like me, approve me, accept me. And a lot of it I realize is that it's not on me to figure out how I fit in your world. It's on me to be me. And that is these boundaries I love because the design, right? The home interior, the Bublins. I started to look at my boundaries. They weren't control. They weren't rigid. I'm like, they are design. How do I want to design this structure that can support this expansive freedom that I was feeling at that time, but support it in a way that protects, not from rigidity, but protects by a structure, support structure, this newfound freedom I fought so hard for. So I'm like, how do I create a structure that allows me the sovereignty? Because in my life, I had success. Before everything crumbled, my life on the paper was absolute success. I'd won awards, leadership awards, all of these things, right? I taught at UC Berkeley. like all of these things. And then, but I was like, I didn't have sovereignty. And so I built the structure. The boundaries were my design. Like I still look at them like, do we need to shape differently? Like, how does that do that to really allow my freedom to continue to flourish? And that it's interesting because these pieces, while they're like, the collapse, going back to my truth, finding my own power from the why me to the now what, then to this piece of like, how do I create the structure for sovereignty of my truth, and what does that actually look like for me? To your point, not based on what everyone else is doing. I'm like, it's really interesting because it changed how I operate. It changed how I live my life. It changes how I built my business. It changes how I lead people. It changes the decisions I make. It changes how energy moves through my business and how I move energy through my business. It just changed everything. And it's really interesting because you talk about the iceberg at the beginning. You only see like the success. So now it's like, oh, she rebuilt her life. She's great. She's successful, blah, 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 blah. But like underneath it was all this work, my truth, my power, my voice, my boundaries. How am I going to operate? And the last thing, like too, the key thing with this structure and the boundaries, I realize a lot of times people think freedom comes without responsibility. I learned that freedom takes a whole lot of responsibility. I was responsible for showing up in my truth and integrity, and I was responsible for having clarity. So if I don't have clarity on something, like I need to take the time to get clarity before I respond to someone. And there was a lot of responsibility that I needed to keep that structure in place.
No, I love it. There's so many profound moments in that I think a lot of people can pull from in their own journey, especially if you're a people pleaser, if you're listening, like dealing with like a yes man, yes woman, people pleaser, what have you. What did it feel like to just completely take your life back and be like, this is my life, this is my choice. I'm doing this for me, and I don't unapologetically you. What did that feeling? How was that feeling for you?
It's such a beautiful question because a part of it felt so good. It felt just like such a relief. Like I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't even have to like pretend that like all aspects of my life are perfect, right? I can keep experimenting and I have this freedom to do that. And it's really like I rebuilt my identity. A lot of time my identity before was like this perfect life. And now my identity is like, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm really, really grateful. And I'm going to keep it simple and I'm going to keep learning. And I'll probably screw up, but I'll absolutely take accountability and responsibility and I'll figure it out. So my identity shifted, which that felt really good to me. Here's where it didn't feel so good. People in my life didn't like this new version of Heather because I didn't fit into their world. I was no longer like now I'm a divorced mom. Like that doesn't fit everyone in my life. Like all of a sudden social circles, I realized like, oh, I don't belong there. And like I wasn't getting invited to certain things because I didn't have any money. So now I don't belong to the fancy social clubs. And so I realized that it felt really good to me, but it was kind of a little bit of a shock to realize not everybody liked it. And I lost a lot of friends. My relationship with my family is very different because I used to be the one that would take it all on. I'll fix everybody's problems. I'll take care of you. I'll find the solution. I'll be the coordinator of all the activities. I'll go above and beyond. And I realized like that actually wasn't in alignment for me. So it changed the dynamics with my family significantly. So there were moments where I was kind of grieving what I had lost, even though my soul knew like it has to change and I felt very much in my own truth. I had moments where I would just break down in tears because I missed the way it was. I didn't miss who I was, I missed the way it was. But the way it was actually built on a performance version of me. It wasn't actually built on my truth.
Yeah.
So I knew there were times, like there was actually a decent period of time where I was grieving. And then of course the Sheila would pop in and was like, well, if you would just blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, we're not doing that again because we know how that lands. But I had to just trust myself. I was like, okay, like back to my little pep talk for myself is like, I know I'm here for greater things. I know this is my truth. I can feel it now. And I just had to anchor in and just know like I'm going to walk this road alone or I will find my people. But I am not going back. And I'm not cutting off edges of myself to fit into places that I actually don't fit. And even sometimes today, it's still hard to see like I don't get invited to certain things. And I'm like, feel so left out, But I'm like, I actually don't fit. So it's actually quite beautiful they didn't invite me because they see that I no longer fit. But it's hard as our human self. We want to belong, we want that connection. And so there was this long period of time that I just really anchored into my truth. And I just like every day, my commitment was to focus on myself and being in my truth and my boundaries, perform. I'm not going to perform. I'm not going to justify. I'm not going to convince. I'm not going to try to cut edges off myself to fit in. I'm going to walk in my truth and I'm going to see what happens. And over time, I started to find, I'll say, like pure connections, different friend groups. My family's adopted. I don't know that they love this. I don't think they like don't love this version of me,
Like
but they
now we got to
probably,
plan our own stuff,
yeah,
Heather. Jeez, what do you?
like I think they just miss what was.
Yeah.
And and so over time, like it's still shifting, to be honest with you. Like it's still shifting and I'm still finding those people, but now it's done in a way like my nervous system is actually relaxed. And that's because I'm in my truth.
Mhm.
But it was definitely this, a lot of stuff still fell away even when I was so excited. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I figured it out. These are my boundaries. Like I feel so free." And then I see all these people falling away in my life still. I'm like, "Wait a minute." Like, hello. It was pretty lonely for a while.
Well, and it sounds like they weren't. They just showed the true form, right? They're not.
Mhm.
They're surface level friends. They liked what it looked like to be a friend with you, or they liked that you would just do everything, make their life easier.
Yeah.
It's not about like reciprocation or about the actual person.
Yeah.
I think that's such a profound thing to come to that realization because then your real friends and real, real people that would actually stand by you in your hardest moment, nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
They're ignoring your calls. They're not coming to check on you. It's like they've proven to you what they think with everything.
Yeah.
So
It's really interesting too because with that, at first I was kind of angry at them and then I realized that I was actually the one that changed. So, I had compassion that the person that I presented before wasn't actually my truth. So they fell in love with a version of me that that wasn't really me. So that's like also part of the responsibility. Like I took responsibility of that. And while it still hurt, I was like, well, I wasn't actually my truthful self. I didn't know it. I wasn't trying to be fake, but I was playing in this imaged life, to keep this certain identity. And when I just said, like, I'm the one that changed, I could see and have compassion for them and also have compassion for myself. And the responsibility was on me because they didn't change. I changed.
sure. No, I totally get that. I think this is a profound kind of realization. We're gonna take a break from your story for a second. We do what's called the lightning round in the middle of the
Okay.
podcast here. Haven't briefed you on these questions. These are just some rapid fire just to break it up a little bit. Um, if you could only use one social media platform for the rest of your life, which would it be?
YouTube.
YouTube. Okay, why?
Because I'm long-winded.
Okay.
I hate when Instagram cuts me off. And I think you can do educational. I just think the longer platforms, there's so much you can do. You can do master classes. I could just tell stories, and then the shorts can be a lot of fun. So I would pick YouTube.
Sure. No, YouTube's great. What's one tool, app, or system that you can't live without in your business today?
Um, mm, I would say things, which is really interesting. It's just like a little to-do thing app, but I'm super particular about how I organize and lay things out. And I don't know, like I live and die because I combine my personal life with business.
Yep.
So there I can just see it all. I can organize it. I have little time reminders. And for me, if I have clarity in what I got to do, then I'll get it done.
Oh, I love it. If your business was a song, what would be the title?
Oh, geez. I don't know the titles of songs. Can I? Oh, canceled.
Canceled? Oh, geez. I like that. Okay. No, little life is a highway
Yeah.
action, maybe.
Yeah.
I love it. No. What is one lesson that you learned the hard way as an entrepreneur?
Taking advice from people I don't trust. Like,
Okay.
I would not trust them with my soul. Like, I didn't even trust them, but I was like, oh, they must know something more than me.
Sure. No, that's really a good one there. And then the last piece here, your favorite part and your least favorite part of running your own business.
My favorite part is there are zero limitations except myself. So that goes back to the responsibility. If things are not going the way I want, then I'm like, okay, I know where the problem is. And so let's take a look. My least favorite part is I hate managing the tech. I just want it to work. I if something doesn't go right, I about lose my mind. So
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think it's a fun tie-in to kind of transition out because I think there's so much that happened with the downfall of Bubblins and your divorce and kind of rebuilding yourself that obviously has made you who you are today. And I think it's something you would never wish on someone, but it's also like the thing that shows who you truly are and kind of giving you kind of that launch pad. As you were starting to pick yourself up, brush your shoulders off, talk to me about She is Fox. How did that all come to be?
yeah. So it is interesting too because my story actually relates with so many of my clients as well. So in hindsight, I'm like, of course I had to go through that because I really get what they're going through to some level. But so I now divorced, single mom, back in the corporate world, and so I decided kind of like a little bit of this energy of the thank you with the doors slamming. Every time I logged into my corporate job, I had failure and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. We can't be slammed with failure on the daily and think our life's going to change. So I decided when I logged in, I was logging in with gratitude. And this period of my life was not failure. It was actually precision. Everything in my life had to collapse so I could get to my truth. And I logged in with gratitude. And it wasn't mind gratitude. It wasn't like you should be gratitude. I am grateful for this moment to rebuild. I was able to walk back into the corporate world. My boss was amazing. I had a couple of them, loved, like, phenomenal human beings. Well, I hated my job. Hated it. I loved my team and I loved my boss and I had a lot of gratitude for it. And it gave me the opportunity to work remotely, which helped with being a single mom. They were very understanding of my schedule being a single mom. And then I also decided I'm like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to make it the absolute best I can be. So I decided two things. One, my team, I was going to be more than just a leader. I'm going to coach them in every aspect of their life if they want it and they need it. Like I'm like all in on them. And then the second, I'm going to make as much money as I can. And I'm going to save as much money as I can. And I'm going to stash that money up. And I am not going to die at this corporate job. Like that was like the two things. So I am super grateful. I can still fulfill my love for impacting people with my team. So I did that. I'm like, we're going to do that. And we're going to make a boatload of money. So you like, and I had a certain point of like, as once I have this amount of money, that's enough and I'm going to leave because what happened is like, oh, I'm getting close, but then the fear like, well, what if I don't have enough and I'm a single mom and I have to pay for insurance and what if I don't have this? I was like, we're not doing that because there's
Shut up,
no
Sheila.
Yes,
God
yes.
damn it, Sheila.
Get back. There's no amount of money that actually ever feels safe for us. So I was like, what is the number? And then you're going to go. And if you go and you have to come back to the corporate world, so be it. But this is what we're doing. And I did that. And in that period of time, I had multiple lawsuits with my ex-husband. And so I, at one point, had spent 5 figures a month on attorney fees.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, whew, how is this going to work? Like, this is not sustainable. Thankfully, that wasn't forever. But there were multiple lawsuits. And so I would see like, oh my gosh, like all this money is just going for this stupid lawsuit, you know? But I was just like, you know what? Still, they're like, now what? So I anchored back to a lot of these, like, now what? Okay, you have this number. You're focusing on this. Who cares what's going on externally? Like, I have a choice. Do I want to engage in this or do I not? And I was like, well, it feels more aligned to fight for my truth. So I'm going to do that. So then I'm like, well, then I'm choosing to spend funds there. Do I want it? No, but out of the option, I can either not do anything and roll over, or stand up for what I believe is true.
But that's not who you are at that point, right? You've decided I'm done rolling over and just saying yes to
Yeah.
everybody. Like I'm going to
Yep.
stand up for
Yep.
myself.
So
So,
I did. So, but I really had to reframe it in my mind that I'm choosing to engage in this, and the funds are well worth my freedom. Because otherwise I would slip back to like, why is this happening to me? Right. So that's really, this period of time I was back in the corporate world for, I think 5 or 6 years. It must have been closer to 6 because 5 was really my like, can we do it in 5 goal? I didn't quite make it. But it didn't matter because I was on my way and I knew it. And so when I shifted that, I really started to just stay. I just was really conscious to stay in that energy. And about 2 years before I left the corporate world, I opened up my business. I didn't do anything with it, but I point this out because it was key. I didn't know how much PTSD I had from having to shut down Bubblins. And so when I opened it, I almost felt like failure again. And I almost felt like you can't do this. You've shut down all of your businesses before. Like, what are you doing? And so I opened it and I let it sit there for a while just so that I could kind of get used to it
mhm.
and work through those emotions and those stories and those beliefs. So I had it open. I think it's been open actually since 2022. And I just let it sit there and I didn't do anything because I had to almost like recalibrate myself to what does this mean? And not letting the way in which I had to shut Budlands down impact how I was going to build my future. And so, all that to say, so I did a lot of internal work on that as well because it was, I don't know, it was just a lot harder to open than I thought it would be. And the other thing, so I'm getting ready to leave the corporate world. So I'm like, okay, I've done it. Like I did this. Like good job. Like you did it. You're ready to leave. And of course I was scared and of course all the doubt was going on. And another thing came up. I was afraid of being visible. I was afraid of being criticized, attacked, like called a failure, whatever. And it was in a completely different realm of work than I had done in Bubblins. Not really. Behind Bubblins was actually the energetics and the power of your space, right? There's a lot of neuroscience. The same thing is here true here, but people didn't see that. And so I was afraid to claim that I owned my own business again. And that took me a long time to recalibrate to stepping into that fear. So I had to step into that. And I mean, it's been a journey ever since. I think I've worked past it now, but I'm like, you can't want people to find you if you secretly want to hide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's crazy. So as you're going through that journey, you open the business, it sits for a while. What was like kind of your first step into, because I'm assuming you did a little moonlighting just to kind of get the business going. If you're having that much like looking off the edge of the diving board, like I don't want to jump yet. Like what was like kind of the first couple clients that reaffirmed like somebody would pay for this service? There's market viability here. Like kind of what was kind of that for you?
yeah, so for me, I worked with a therapist because I was like, whoa, like I was not expecting all this to happen. And I'm not really sure what to do. So I was grateful that my therapist at the time, she also, I had like full Voxer support for her. So, and she also is a business owner. So she helped me with, I'll say like the business as well as the therapy and helped me regulate my nervous system. So she literally like held my hand step
That's
by
awesome.
step of
You
we're
never
going to
see that with like a
Mm-mm.
therapist that also helps with business stuff. That's cool.
No, she was so amazing because what this is like how bad it was. I would create a post on Instagram and I would write it and I wouldn't post it. And she was like, "Hey, I thought you said you had it ready to go." I'm like, "Well, I do." She's like, "Are you going to post it?" I'm like, "I can't." She's like, "Do you want me to get on the call with you?" And I was like, sure. I'm still not sure if I'm actually going to post it because I'm afraid of what people will say or I'm like a fraud or whatever, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. And so we did that many times. And then I would post it and I would completely energetically collapse. I couldn't open Instagram. I didn't want to open any of my text messages. I was afraid of who saw it. I never looked at who saw it and never looked at who commented on it. And I was secretly praying nobody ever saw it. And so I would have these expansions, like this little, like, oh, I have this little bit of courage, and then I would collapse. And then I'd have a little courage and I'd collapse. And really what happened is I was able to start to expand my capacity. So the collapses still happen. If I do something big, I'm like, oh, but it's not like this anymore. So it took about, I think, 2 years of working with her to really expand my capacity to hold the pressure that came with it. So I had her, and then so she worked with it, and then I started out, I did free sessions. And even this is so funny to think. People would do a free session with me. Either it would be like subconscious recoding, like if they had a belief and they're like, why do I always attract the same type of partners? Or why can't I get above $100,000 a month? I would do a free session, and afterwards I felt like it was a waste of their time. Even if they would message me like, this was so profound, this was so helpful, thank you, they would want to gift me money, and I'd be like, no, no. And so I'm like, and my therapist, she's like, sweetheart, like, how do you expect to build a business if you're rejecting money? So I did free sessions for probably 6 or 8 months.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
free.
Okay, like I was thinking like, oh, 1 or 2.
Mm-mm. And
Sheila, what the heck?
yes, because I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't have it. Is it going to be worthy? And even in the free sessions, I didn't feel like it was worthy until like enough people would be like, this is so profound. Like, let me pay you. Like, this was so helpful. And I would do channeling stuff. I would do some business stuff with them. Like, really, my gifts are the same, whether working in their personal life or their business life. And oftentimes they're intertwined. And so eventually I was like, okay, like I'm going to charge for these sessions. And I had a collapse. And like when our energy collapse, people feel that. So no one bought sessions from me. No one bought packages from me. And I was like, see, like I can't do this. So then it was for me to change my energy around it. And that was again the under the iceberg tip of the work I had to do. Do I see the value in this? It's not on me to convince you of the value. If you feel it and you're drawn towards it, then my job is to show up in integrity, to be present with you, to trust that what comes through is for you, to guide you however I'm guided to guide you. That's my job. My job isn't to convince you, isn't to justify my skills or my services to you. It is to share them with you, to invite you in. And if you feel compelled, then we'll work together. And I'm going to trust that whatever comes through needs to come through. And it wasn't until I did that then things started to shift. And the more things started to shift, I still, all through this time, I'm still having expansion collapse, right? So then people are reaching out to me and booking sessions, and I remember my phone dinging of sales, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't even know this person. Like, how did they find me? I like couldn't believe it. And then, then you wake up to sales overnight and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is the dream, right? Like, is it going to go away? Am I going to have to shut it down? Like all those Sheila thoughts start coming back. So it's just been a constant journey, but it was me shifting the energetics about me, my beliefs under it that shifted the energy in which I shared my business.
That is so awesome. I think it's so interesting as well, just the ebb and the flow. It's kind of like waves on a shore, right? It's like comes in and then it goes away and comes in like can I do this? Can I not do this? I think a lot of people can connect with that, or the imposter syndrome of like, somebody wants to pay me for this, even though that's the whole point of the business. It's like exchange of value for money if they feel that way. So I think that's a big piece as well. If somebody's like listening of like, man, I don't know what to charge. They're like critically undercharging for their services or their products or what have you as well. I think that's a big piece there. To kind of tie it all together too, you mentioned kind of now current day, you're helping more people. You kind of accepted this. Talk to me about kind of the mindset now with your business as you're looking into the future of what this looks like in the future.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for what is to come. And I will say, just to tie back just a little bit on what you said before, is I think this ebb and flow is life, right? If we're constantly growing and expanding, we're going to have these. Like I still have the collapses today, but they're just not as great. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course I'm collapsing because I just made a bold move and it was a little bit stretchy, but it was aligned. So as I look to the future, I truly feel so blessed. Like some days I'm like, how I'm so grateful for my gifts. I'm so grateful for however people find me. And I'm so grateful for the work I do. And it's fascinating. The more I anchor into that, the more opportunities come to me. So just a side note of that. This morning I woke up. There was this client. She came to me as a referral. I've worked with her a few times. This morning she's like, I looked at your offers. I want to work with you like even more than that. Like, how can I work with you beyond what you offer? Like, do you offer any like high level one on one where we could work together? And I was like, this is fascinating. People are coming to me wanting more. And so it's because of I've just built it in truth and alignment, and everything I do I just make sure is so pure. So as I look to the future, so right now I do a lot of one-on-one sessions and I do some group sessions, and then I have different packages that are really, people come and like whether it's a business, right? If a business is like an entrepreneur that wants to work with us and support his team, like that's just kind of a custom package. So the way I look at it in the future is I only have so much of me and only so much of my energy. So I see a lot of that. I like keeping a handful of real high level, I'll say Lux level private clients where I'm really engaged in what they're doing. They have full access to me through Telegram. I'm supporting them. I loved that support that I got from my therapist. And so I realized that was transformational for me. So I offer it. So we have one on ones. I work with them in their business or personal life, and then through the Telegram. And so continuing to keep that because I cherish that. And then also, I have this mid level group. I haven't quite launched it that I will here in the next month, is for people who don't, they're the ones that want to continue to grow, but they don't have the money to pay me for the private one on ones consistently. Because I was here, like I had no money. I remember like reading books to try to help myself, and someone would offer a free masterclass and I'm like, I'm in. Like, what do you have? Like, I don't have any money to pay you. um so this group is really about helping those people go to the next level, and then I also offer just single one-on-one sessions. But the work in which I do, it's starting to really meld. Like I am a channel and I didn't realize that. Like I have intuitive gifts that just come through very, very quickly. And it's so funny because I grew up Catholic and it's like, what? Like, are you a witch or something? Like, what are you? And it's really just like purity. Like, I'm just able to tap into the frequency of truth really, really quickly and stuff comes through. And so I'm blending some of this intuitive channel gifts, and we all have it. But I like, this is a side note, but we all have this gift, but we don't know how to use it. And we all have varying levels of it. So I like to equate that like you and I, we can both go shoot baskets. Like we're all capable of it. And some people are going to be a heck of a lot better at shooting baskets than others because they're maybe have a different talent and practice, right? So I truly think I have a gift that stuff just comes to me so naturally for people. So melding that with also the subconscious recoding. So a big part of the work I do, and I want to continue to expand this into the world, is helping people see the truth of who they are. If I would have seen the truth of who I was, I probably would not have landed where I did in a collapse. I couldn't even see my truth. We know it, but we can't always see it. And so a lot of the work is helping people see the truth of who they are. When you see the truth of who you are, you see the world differently and you actually see how great you are. It's not like rah, 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 I'm going to pep you up. It's like, no, like, do you realize your gifts, your capabilities, whatever they may be? And then helping them get their power back. And then sometimes I do subconscious reprogramming with people because we have these beliefs in our head that are looping, like the why me, and we just need to shift them out of the way. So I see my work become available to all levels, like those that don't have a ton of funds, but are absolutely like, I know I'm destined to live a better life. And then I love working really intimately with, people that are like, I'm at the top of my game, but I got to shift something. And I know there's more. Like I love both of those. And it's bringing in this intuitive gifts with the mind, because when we clear the interferences energetically and we clear the blocks in the mind, like it is game over, people. Like the stuff they do, the way they transform their life is so fantastic. Like there is nothing that gets me more excited. Like when people are like, oh my gosh, it clicked, I got it. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. So it's continuing to build those in some fashion. And but it's the truth. Really, the heart of what I do is help people see the truth of who they are, and then we remove the interferences energetically or mentally to pave the way. And I still do help people set up their space to support the work we do. Like, I don't advertise it, but I'm
Bubblins
like,
is making a recap here. We're
I'm
coming
like,
back.
I can't put it down. I'm like, it's so important. Like, we just reprogrammed your mind. Like, we cannot have this around you. Like, it's gotta go.
Sure.
And so I do that with my private clients of like, okay, let's design the space, both in their homes and in their offices and for their staff.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I love that so much. It sounds like just, especially with all the different things going on, now you have different avenues to reach people, whether it's one-on-one, a masterclass, that type of thing. Any plans in the future for like a book or kind of a subscription mastermind for like the masses that like a bunch of people could join or anything like that?
Yeah. So I have lots of books actually that I do want to write and I will write. And I also have a lot of children's books because I work with primarily adults. I do work with some younger, like not little kids, but like teenagers. Um, and I realized that a lot of our pain comes from our youth. And if I could help children see themselves differently, and if I could help parents see their children differently and themselves differently, a lot of that pain can be eliminated and more joy can be experienced. So I have a whole segment that I haven't launched. I have all the little characters written out. I have it all ready to go. I have a children's series, but the children's series is to really help them find their personal power, their voice, what that looks like, and also provide support for parents to know how do I support this kid? Because we've only been taught what we know. Like I remember like, well, because I said so. Well, that's not really helpful, you know? Or I'm the mom, like I have the final say. Like that just cuts kids off. And parents don't mean it, but they don't know anything else. So I do see down the road of something with children and parents because I wish I would have had that. It literally breaks my heart when I see parents trying to parent their kids, but I see how harmful the way in which it's done, but they're not trying to be harmful. And then you can even see like the parent doesn't feel good. So I was like, oh, like this dynamic. So that is a big passion of mine that I absolutely will do. But I love speaking to a lot of people. I love, stages, which I think is like YouTube in my mind. It's like my own stage.
Mm-hmm.
The books, the children, the parents, that is definitely something to come. And then I do see that some of these groups start to grow. I think I'll always have private clients because I love that connection and having such in-depth. I mean, literally some of my clients, like we're talking about hemorrhoids, we're talking about migraines, we're talking about infertility, we're talking about miscarriages, and they're running multi-million-dollar companies, right? So it's not just they hired me because of the company, but all of these other things are going on in their life and they matter. So I love like there's no limits. It's like life. Let's do life together.
Mm-hmm.
But these groups, like they're kind of more of a membership. I do see that expanding because that's the easiest way for me to be most impactful to the masses. And I think there are so many people who truly want to help themselves but don't know how, and they don't have the funds to invest. So this is the part that I see expanding, and I haven't even officially launched it yet, but I do see like that is the dream, to have that accessible to so many people. And then the other thing, I am getting ready to launch a private podcast, which is where, because a lot of people will be like, your little shifts, like the why me to the now what, like those are helpful. They're sticky.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I want to know how your mind works. I want to know like energetically what you do. Like, how do you keep your energy clear when you're working with people, or how do you engage with this? So I'm getting ready to launch a private podcast that are like super like Cliff Note versions of like little snippets of behind the scenes of what I do. And that's another way, that's a really low ticket way for people to just like get some connection and some insights of how to do things differently. Because one of the biggest things is perspective. If no one has shown them a different way of thinking about something, like they just continue to operate their own way. But I'm like, wait a minute, what if you looked at it like this? And like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Yeah. So sometimes just shifting your perspective is like, oh my gosh, like I'm good. Like all they need is a perspective shift. So I can give that in the private podcast. You can listen to it anywhere. So those are some of the things that are in the further away and then like more near term works to reach a broader group of people.
No, I love that so much. So many good things, Heather. I want to be mindful of your time today. I kind of want to leave people with like a good, solid like piece of advice. If someone's made it to this far in the show, if there's other entrepreneurs, female founders listening, that are going through like hard times, maybe they're really like struggling to drive revenue, their team's collapsing, their world's caving in, like where you found yourself a couple years ago. What advice would you have for them to get through those really tough times?
Yeah, that the collapse is actually a gift. So if they're going through the collapse can be an absolute gift. And the biggest thing is, I would say the easiest, biggest, quick thing is going from the why me to the now what. It instantly puts you in your power. So if you're in the now what, like even if all of that crap is true, even if all of these awful things are happening in my life, even if I don't have $1 in my wallet, now what? And it's not from a place of pressure. It's like this, like, oh gosh, like now what am I gonna do? Like I can figure this out. Like anything is possible. And so for me, I just kept going back to these anchor points of my truth and now what? And then I gave myself, and I highly recommend you give yourself permission to experiment, not carelessly. I didn't just recklessly experiment, but we think as adults, we can't play. I didn't know who my new identity was. And so give yourself room to play and experiment with like, let me just try this identity on. Maybe I like it, maybe I hate it, but I'm just going to try it on. It's like trying on different wigs. Ooh, what does this one look like? What does this one look like? Ooh, pink. Like pink is not my thing. I'm going to do this. And so I literally would do that. Like we're going to try on a different identity today. And it wasn't from this like crazy point of like, I'm just going to be a crazy person. But it was like, I got to figure out who this is. And I just want to try this on and see what it feels like because I know what this is. So it's really the collapse is a gift from why me will break you. The now what will make you truly. It's so cheesy, but it's so true. And then give yourself permission to try on the different identities until you find one that resonates with you. You'll know. We all know. We're like, oh yeah, this is totally me. And then give yourself just that space to play with it and grow with it. And I promise you do those things. I promise you your energy shifts. When your energy shifts, your life shifts. Like it happens. It cannot, like you can't change the energy over here and not impact it over here. It will 1000% shift. And if you don't like it, I tell this to my daughter all the time. If you don't like it, guess what? You can change it. You can try on a new identity, shift your energy, and then something else will shift. So we're never stuck. We have the illusion like I got to pick a lane and I'm stuck. You're not stuck.
I love it so much, so much. Heather Fox, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people learn more about you if they want to check out some of the different offers you have?
Thank you for having me. It's just such a joy to share the unravelings of my story. So I'm going through a major rebrand and a website. So it's a little bit wonky right now, but that's life. So right now, the best place to find me until this rebrand is done is just on Instagram. And that's at she.is.fox. So she.is.fox. And most people just end up DMing me. And like, if you have a question or don't understand it, or I'm like, I'm interested in working with you, most of them just like DM me, we'll talk, see if you're a good fit, or answer your questions and like go from there. It's super low key and casual and simple.
Perfect so much. Oh, this is so great. If you guys made it this far in the show, you guys know what to do. Go check her out. All the stuff will be linked below for links to her Instagram and things like that. Also, if you made it this far in the show, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on the show by the end of the year, so make sure to do that as well. And tune into all of our social media channels. Every Monday morning, we're launching a new podcast to help you with your business and in your life. But until next Monday, my name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and I'm out. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snod Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snodmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.